Cool, thank you. Right, so we'll kick off the first panel. Let me introduce Matt Barrett. He's the CEO of Adaptability.
And how do
Bernie Thurston. He's the founder and CEO of Ultumus. And six for your company, right?
Yes. I haven't managed to get a badge yet.
Oh, there you are. Matt Smith, CEO and founder of SteelEye, which one of the finest things like that. Right, so these guys have all founded, they've got very successful fintech companies. So, over to you.
So we haven't done a lot of prep with this, guys. And one of the things you learn about being a CEO of a fintech business is that you need to do prep, but the problems and challenges you're going to face on a day-to-day basis are nothing like what you expect. I thought I'll take 2 minutes, guys, to sit down. I started my career. Indeed, I started my whole identity as a software developer, a software engineer. I did a computer science degree in New Zealand, came to London in 2005, worked for a few different industries as a contractor, as a software developer, then worked in finance, got my first job in finance in 2010. And at that point in time, I was having a real, crisis is a strong word, but I was really doubting whether I wanted to continue to be a software developer. But it was when I found people that were working in finance that I found a bunch of engineers who were really, really interested in doing things as well as they possibly could. And that's one of the really great things about fintech, is that what you're doing really matters. Numbers matter to people. Money matters to people. It's really important. If you're in capital markets, then you've got traders who are shouting at you about billions. If you're in wealth management, you've got other people concerned about their pensions and their investments. Like, you have a chance to work on software and technology that has a real day-to-day impact with people. And as Matt was saying when he opened up, there's a real chance and ability for fintech to change, to make real impact on people's lives. We would all probably say this, better than being a lawyer and accountant. There are obviously lawyers and accountants in fintech as well, but if you have a slightly technical mindset, and you don't need to be in a software developer, as Matt says, or you're interested in finance in any way, then it is a fantastic place to make your home. I started my business, Adaptive, in 2012 with a bunch of people that I'd met working on a previous project. And at the time, the project that I worked on was the best professional experience I'd ever had in my life. And it made me truly get up and be excited about coming to work. And I've managed to keep that going for the last 12, 13, 14 years, which I think is the most amazing part. There have been some real hardships through the time. No one tells you how much you're going to have to change your sense of identity and sense of self as you go through the growth of being a CEO, as the company demands so many different things from you. I thought I was a software engineer. Then I had to figure out how to do sales and walk into a room just like this with a sea of faces that I didn't know and feel comfortable going up and introducing myself to people and trying to sell them my services without knowing whether they gave a shit or not. If you're feeling insecure and challenged and you think that's a difficult thing to do, you're right, it is, but you can also overcome it by just practicing. And everyone, all the founders, all the mentors, everyone you'll meet today will have gone through a period exactly like what you're going through right now, feeling overwhelmed and scared by it, and I just want to leave and not think about it anymore. So today I would just really encourage you guys to go up and shake people's hands that you would not otherwise do, start those conversations about fintech.
And I'd be happy just to share my journey into fintech. So Matt Smith, and the chief executive of a company called SteelEye. My background was very different. Unlike Matt, I couldn't write a line of code to save my life. If I had to write a line of code to do anything or not be able to leave this room, I'd be here forever. And my background is also different. I didn't go to university. I dropped out of high school in Canada when I was 16. I moved to the UK. I had no experience. And through a few lucky events, I ended up working as a contractor in a bank just down the road, and working on the IT help desk, and slowly worked my way up. I ultimately became a senior project manager At a fairly young age, so I was rolling out trading systems at this point at about 24. Because I had taken a different route, I progressed my career quite fast. By the time I was 29, I was the chief information officer, for a $100 billion trading company that's worldwide. And through that journey, I started to learn a lot more about buying and building systems for all different elements of financial markets. Spent a brief period at Bloomberg where I was a senior product manager for the regulatory and compliance business. And that's actually where I came up with the idea for SteelEye. Back in 2017, I took a major risk and quit my job. I had 2 young children, which was terrifying, and went off on a journey to try and build something that would make a difference in a meaningful way to financial markets. And I think we managed to achieve that. So far, we've built a business now where we have about 180 institutional clients around the world, about 130 staff, over about 6 countries, and just growing.
I'm Bernie Thurston, and I think consistent theme from here. I can actually code, but my CTO refuses to let me. I don't think the way I do it doesn't fit into any standards or anything else. But I think one of the consistent themes from all 3 of us here is the fact that don't assume you know what path you're going to take. In terms of it does continuously change. I started off, I got a degree in mechanical engineering. I ended up doing infrastructure for a number of banks. I built out Sky's first interactive television system, ended up back in banking again, and somehow, and I'm not sure how, ended up running an equities business. And from there on, I suddenly started getting dragged into what's now called ETFs, exchange traded funds. And the major part behind that was I then decided to actually set up this company, Ultumus, which effectively provides all the back end for exchange traded funds on a global basis. We've got offices in Singapore, London, and Hawaii. I was just like dropping the Hawaii one in for absolutely no reason. But the whole idea is that I started off on infrastructure, building out TCP/IP, building out Lisp programs and everything else. Suddenly I've ended up in finance. The differentiation between technology and finance these days is very, very narrow, if it exists at all, in terms of, and being able to talk, and going back to your point, the training myself from being a technologist who effectively, and I'm just checking Darren isn't here, technologist who immediately turns around to everyone and goes, by the way, we want to be able to do this, and going, no, to being a CEO and turning around to everyone who turns up and going, yes, we can do that. It was quite a revelation to me, and being able, it actually was a fundamental change, as you alluded to, in terms of how you approach people, how you go into. It sounds as though we both ended up in sales in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, by mistake.
And I think that was the big part that I learned out of this whole journey is, by the way, we're all in sales in some way, shape, or form. Selling yourself, selling the company. We spend a long time training all of our guys up that they are the front line, whoever they're talking to, they are actually selling the company at the back end. How we respond to people is very important. But I think coming back down to my first point, it's just that whole idea in terms of you can start off on a career, you will change direction. You don't think what you start off as defines what you're going to become in any way, shape, or form. It will change. And trust me, I never expected to be doing this at the end of the day.
The sales thing, I think, is interesting. So working in industry, what I realized when I started the company was actually my whole career, I was selling software to my management internally. Give me some money to build something, give me some money to buy something, and I'd have to convince them. So when you actually transition into Fintech and you're selling, you've got a lot of experience if you worked in the industry that you didn't even know you had. You probably have it from all different areas of your life. As you go through, you're convincing people to do something. And that's sales. To your point on learning sales, like to me, I say to my company in any of our town hall, everybody is go to market. Everybody in the company, I don't care if you're a developer, you're working in HR, I want everybody thinking commercially because that's the success of a business.
And I think following on from that, in terms of one of the first people I employed within my company was a head of sales. And I was funded by a private equity group, and the private equity group challenged me as to why I was firing a head of sales before I actually had a product, which does seem counterintuitive. However, the private equity group has now changed. They're now insisting that all of the companies employ a head of sales, even if they don't have a product. Because effectively, one of the problems that founders have is we get intellectually interested in aspects. They may not be commercial. And it's one of the big parts that you do learn as you go through this process is you always have to try and figure out how is this going to make money and when is it going to make money? Because that's unfortunately what keeps the company running. And that's why having commercially minded individuals, and they can be very different to the founders. Founders have a...
Because it's a journey. So look, I had a board of directors when I started the company.
Oh, the whole thing.
And they were actually good because we were all independent at the time. And one of them insisted on hiring sales head. And I was like, I don't have a product. Like, why would I need a sales head? He's like, do it. And I did. And what that meant was we built the sales infrastructure before we had something to sell. What made you actually bring out that?
And mainly due to that
Experience or?
no, unfortunately not. It's that the guy who's my head of sales, I've actually worked with him for over 25 years. And it was effectively, he wanted desperately to get out of his old lift.
So you just wanted to get the back.
Really, yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of anywhere else.
See, guys, all CEOs are great strategy. Everyone's got a plan.
However, the downside of that is, unfortunately, as a CEO, when you're running the numbers, looking at the burn rate, how long you're going to do, if you have got the band back together, which I did, effectively, my CTO has worked for me for over 15 years, and effectively, you suddenly realise you're responsible for effectively friends at that stage and people who you've worked with for a long time. You're responsible for their career, their finances, their mortgages, their kids, and everything else. It's you suddenly find CEO
a lot of pressure, right?
A lot of pressure.
Yeah. I think on the point around engineers and sales and that schism between personalities and identities, and some of you in the room will probably identify as salespeople, commercial folk. You want to build businesses, make money, enjoy the feel of creating economic value, and others of you will probably think of yourselves as engineers, and there'll be a bunch of other perspectives as well, I'm sure. The reason that one of the reasons that if any of us are good at our jobs, he says humbly, is because we've managed to fit the two together, and we can have a mindset about the engineering necessity of a product that works. To a certain extent, there's an engineering purity to the sort of things we do, but you also need commercial vulgarity to make it work. You have to make people want it. You have to make people realize that their lives are worse without something you've got. And there's an element of positioning, of marketing, of all the business challenges you guys are going to go through this afternoon that fit into that. And being a CEO and starting a business and thinking about how to go to market with an offering often starts with, as people say, scratch your own itch first, a problem you've identified. But your perspective on the problem is a great place to start, but it's a really bad place to stop. Because you will think that you've done enough and you have gone only 2/3 of the way. So it's a very interesting perspective to keep in mind.
I would say it's quite interesting. Unfortunately, one of the other reasons and why I got similarly commercial is that again, we can actually become too perfectionist as well.
Yeah.
In terms of you don't know when is the right time to go to market. In terms of your clients define that, you don't. As in, I've had problems where I've been working on some things and I'm going, no, I need to improve this. I need to get it better. My sales guy doesn't care. He's going, will somebody buy it right now?
What about some of the toughest decisions you guys have had to take, and how you've had to think about your own morals, your own ethics?
The hardest.
I'll let you answer that one.
The hardest thing of being a founder CEO is also the best thing of being a founder CEO, in my perspective, and that's people. And the best thing is, it's like you said, when I started my company, the team that I put together to help me see the idea, the vision I had through the people I've worked with through my career. So there were people I trusted. We knew each other's family. One of them even went to my wedding. So like we knew each other very intimately, and therefore we're in this thing together. And then you start to build a team, and you bring in some fantastic people that develop the same passion that you have working with them. And many of them from the very early days still with me at SteelEye. But then on the flip side of that, people can also be damaging to your business, whether it be through culture, whether it be through just like doing the job that they need to do. When you have to make decisions, and certainly when it comes to people that are bad for culture. The culture for me is very important. I invested a lot of time and effort into building a culture I'm very proud of, which is worldwide. If you go to my company in India or Singapore or New York, the culture is the same. And that takes a lot of work. And one individual can damage that very, very fast. And if you're not careful, it spreads. And I'm a very nice person. If you know me, I'm too nice a lot of times. So I try to make it work. I try to change people. I try to get them to understand that I take too long in terms of making the hard decisions sometimes. And it usually is around people. But what I've learned over the years through many scars is that you have to make those decisions fast. I'm a lot more ruthless with that type of thing now. I don't tolerate it. But the hardest thing for me and the best thing is
Yeah. I often say to in town halls and to the team around me that if you want to build a good company, the first thing you have to do is have a company. And your job as the CEO is to make sure the company is there quarter by quarter, year on year, making money. Because you need to make more money than you spend. It seems a bit stupid to say it, but you do need to. It's fun to spend money, but it's not fun having to let people go when you don't have the money to pay their salaries or keep the business afloat. And so the toughest decisions have been for me around making decisions around letting people go, changing direction and strategy, changing what we thought was going to work to something else. Not through the fault of the individuals involved, but because I got something wrong, we got something wrong, the market went a different way. And just having to really confront the fact that no matter how much you prep and how much you analyze and how much you think, you're not in control of all the factors. And it's a very humbling experience. Even when you have a great team around you and they're all pulling in the same direction, things can still go against you. And it can be there can be some very lonely times. Some fantastic times as well, but yeah, it can make some very challenging experiences.
I would say, and so one of the things that I found as a CEO, and the part that surprised me is I'm allegedly one of the best in ETFs on a global basis. How much of my business how much of my time is now spent on ETFs, the products my company runs and everything else, is probably less than 10%. I end up getting embedded in legal, HR, accounts, all the things I absolutely hate. All the
US tax problem.
Yes. But yeah, I'm signing off on US tax forms. Actually, I'm not going to say this, my lawyers at the back of the room, that I don't understand. And that's the major part. As a CEO, suddenly you end up having to motivate all your employees, get them focused on something when you're actually doing the things that, one, I don't think I'm good at, I don't enjoy, but those are the things that now consume 90% of my time. But again, it's the only reason I've been able to do that is by having a good team around me. And one of the worst things I've had to do is get rid of the people who were bringing the company down. And it is amazing in terms of startups are a different beast in terms of the people that you need on board to start and grow a company can be very different to the people that you then need to run a company at the end of the day. As in my COO, she's fantastic. She actually is all the things that I'm not. She's very detail focused. She makes sure we follow processes. But if we'd had her on day one, it would have been very difficult to grow the company and maybe cut some of the corners that were necessary in terms of quality. She's now made sure that everything is very diligent, very driven. We've got all of our SOC 2 audits and everything else, things that I couldn't have done.
So you got 1 minute now.
I told you it was a good idea.
One point left.
I was actually just going to leave with a bit of advice.
Yeah, go for it.
And this is advice that I would give to anybody. And it doesn't matter if you're going to work for 6 and you're starting a company. We all have weaknesses. I know that. And I know how to compensate for your weaknesses with people. So what I end up doing is looking for, I did this when I was a chief information officer. I do this as a CEO. Where I'm not strong, find the strongest people to fill that gap. And I mean the strongest people that are way better than you could ever be at.
And not necessarily people you get on with.
We should try to. Yeah.
But again, I was going to say, my head of sales, my head COO, they're diametrically opposite to me and not people that I'm necessarily engaged with, but they fill in the blanks of the parts that I don't have.
Yeah, the education system that I went through in New Zealand was really about trying to generate an all-rounder. If you were good at math and bad at English, you spent more time on English rather than in math. But in the working world, if you're good at something, you should probably try to make yourself even better at it so that you can become, like Bernie here, top 10% in the world. It's real value in that. But top 1% in the world in that. And to Matt's point, the things that you know you're not good at, just find some people that are good at it with you, right? It's much more fun in a team. Way more fun in a team. Yeah, it's a really good point, Matt.
Cool. Thank you, guys. So we're going to split off into the workshops now. So if you're in the capital markets one,